Gareth, do you recognize this girl?
Yes.
What's her name?
Cherry.
We think we can help you, but we need to help her too.
You don't understand.
Who is she?
I'm asking you politely to let this one go.
She's a child.
The reason you can't find Cherry, the reason why she doesn't have a last name or a social security number, is because she's not a real human being.
Hey, what's up? I'm Cherry.
She's one of the most complex AIs that's ever been created.
What I want is to protect children.
We're talking about a monumental transition from digital to physical.
Human nature is not something I aspire to.
Do you want to tell us the truth?
Cherry isn't human.
No more secrets.
I can't even tell I'm not human anymore!
Hello again.
Hello, Cherry.
So you direct the film and you also star in this film as Gareth. I'm wondering, was that the initial plan, or was it you decided to star in a film because of budget issues or restrictions, or was that how it was going at first?
Right. Yeah. No, that was never the plan to play Gareth. But when we were looking at the film, we said, it's going to cost this much to make, and we don't have access to that. But what we could do is shoot a proof of concept section of the film. And so in order to, we basically shot that for almost nothing. And while in that process, which was also during COVID, we said, okay, how do we limit the amount of bodies that are on set? How do we, cut costs and all this stuff? And it just, since Gareth was a character that sort of fit my description physically, and I felt comfortable playing the role, being alongside actors that I'd previously worked with on stage and on set in previous projects, I felt like this is something that I can do. Was it ideal? Not initially. No, I think I would have preferred to have just been behind the camera and had a more talented actor playing the role of Gareth. But at the same time, I had an incredible time and learned so much getting to work with Cinda and David, who play the other characters, as well as Tatum. And I had a terrific time doing it.
Artificial intelligence is such a huge freaking subject, and it's so fascinating to me. I'm curious for you, what kind of research did you do about artificial intelligence when you're preparing for this film? It had to be a ton.
It was lots. It was kind of what was great about COVID was that you had nothing but time. And so I had been kind of like vaguely interested in the idea of the technologies being used to catch criminals and predators, and I thought, like, that's interesting. I'd love to see like what kind of conversations are had behind closed doors with the people making these things. But I didn't feel like a call to write anything until there was like this very bizarre, sudden, like thematic connection that I felt I made, like between the adolescence of AI and childhood trauma. And then suddenly it was like, all right, I have to write this. And, before like I even got like a couple lines down, I was like, I don't know any of this stuff. So I ended up doing like a little bit of Googling and some research. And then 3 days later, I'm taking like an online course and I almost got the certificate. But no, it was an intense amount of research. And I think also a really great learning experience for me. I feel like the best research that you can do is reaching out and having one-on-one conversations with these people that are actually doing what it is that you're talking about in these films. So talking to experts in technology, AI, robotics, there's like a whole specialty just of ethics and AI, and that to me was like fascinating. I was like, well, that's what a cool job to have, to like discuss the ethics and morality behind AI, and that was very insightful. But also, again, criminal procedure was another big thing that I had to research, and that kind of stuff. Again, you want to be able to talk to these people and get to know them personally, because that will inform how your characters are formed emotionally and personality wise.
This film has 3 specific acts, and for me, one of my favorite acts is the first act of the film, which takes place in a small interrogation room with just 3 actors. And that can be kind of a tricky situation when it comes to the writing, the pacing, and the directing. Well, what was your thought process when tackling that specific first act, and were you nervous about it at all?
Absolutely. Like that's the big fear with this film, was that, what if people find it boring? It's just 3 people talking in a room. So with that in mind, going into it, I was like, okay, how do I make this compelling? How do I make this thrilling and, exciting to watch? Why is this a film and not like a book or a stage play? And for me, I think a big part of tackling that that problem of how do you make this exciting is, one, how you carefully dispense the information, while at the same time generating mysteries. So every I think if you could probably like build a little timeline and watch the film, and it's like every 100 seconds, it's like there's a new bit of information revealed, like a secret is told, and then another 100 minutes later, a new mystery pops up, and then another 100 seconds later, and you just keep alternating. So that kind of helped the pacing of Act 1, where we keep like sort of dropping little mysteries and then telling the audience a secret, and it just sort of becomes a cycle. But also, I think a big part of it was our cinematography, and making
Absolutely.
sure that our shot compositions were very deliberate, and we only used one camera. We didn't want this to be a multi-setup thing. We wanted every shot to feel very specific and purposeful. And also, we didn't want to be using the same shots over and over again throughout the course of Act 1. So we had to keep the shots dynamic and keep our coverage very specific and fluctuating, I guess.
For me, just real quick, as a fan of like procedurals, and specifically when it comes to these interrogation scenes, like from The Wire and Homicide: Life on the Street, or some of my favorite interrogation scenes, that's what I was thinking about watching that first act. So kudos to you, man, because I thought it was fantastic. It just flew by for me.
I'm so glad you mentioned The Wire. That no one else has mentioned that, but that was one of my biggest influences with that first act.
You can tell. You can tell.
That show, yeah.
The Wire is one of the greatest shows ever created.
Oh, it's the best. It is. It's like the single best show. But yeah, definitely a lot of The Wire. Definitely a lot of Zodiac and Mindhunter. So that was definitely an influence.
For Cherry the AI, how important to the film was it that she wasn't like this full-blown CGI like effect, particularly in the first act of the 3 acts? The other actors really had to step up the game because of the lack of the emotion or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. We had talked a while about how we were going to do Cherry, and initially I thought, like, wouldn't that be cool to like have a photorealistic CGI character in the film? But then talking about it, and sort of working through pre-production, one thing was that if there was a CGI character on the screen, the audience would go, "Oh, I can tell she's CGI. This wouldn't fool anybody," right? And then at the same time, we had talked about, okay, well, let's walk that back a bit. What if we did like a deep fake of her own face on top of her face, just to give it like that little bit of uncanniness? We experimented with some stuff and we tried some things out. And it was kind of cool how like unsettling it was, but at the same time, there's that moment where Amos steps forward and looks at her and says, I can't tell the difference, whereas the other two characters can. And we wanted to sort of put the audience in his perspective, because that would set him up as being kind of like the unexpected protagonist of Act Two. So in order to get us to the audience to empathize with him, we decided to not do anything crazy with her face or do any CGI treatment to her. We did a little bit of augmentation in color correction, and I think we might have, like, there are a few shots where we made her eyes just a little too big, or and we also did some stuff with the frame rate as well to help with that. But no, I think I really like that we kept her as an actor. And it was also really hilarious when we premiered the film at Fantasia a few weeks ago, and we had the Q&A, and someone asked, like, did you use CGI? And I said, who here could tell that she was CGI in Act One? And like, you saw like 10 hands go up. You're like, oh yeah, I could tell. And I was like, haha. So people are looking for it. When you tell someone that something might be fake, the human brain is like programmed to try and find that's why we're so good at it. We're so good at telling the difference between real and fake. So that sometimes when we think it might be fake, we end up like creating those flaws. Like, I don't know, do eyes blink like that? You know?
Right.
That was cool.
I think doing it this way kept the film more grounded for me, particularly as a viewer. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but it kept it more grounded, kept more focused on the characters and the dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That was the whole plan from the get-go. We said, you know, we don't think we probably won't have the budget to do Ex Machina effects or, you know, Blade Runner effects. So what we can do is focus on the dialogue and keep it grounded, you know, the same way that Primer does such a good job of that. And I know a lot of people have been mentioning that film when talking about this film, and it's absolutely true. It was a huge influence, but yeah, keeping it grounded so that we're sort of building these little dots that the audience can very easily kind of draw between realism and then fantastic sci-fi. And if we keep them grounded enough, hopefully people will buy into the spectacular science fiction Ray Bradbury ending that we have, you know.
It's interesting, you know, you see today shows like Catch a Predator and things like that are going on in our world today. How close do you think we are to something like what's happening in this film actually happening in our world? Are we 10, 15, 20 years off, or is that like 50 years down the road? Because when I was watching this, I was thinking of like To Catch a Predator meets Minority Report, kind of.
Right. Well, yeah. So there are technologies out there that are doing this kind of thing. There are people in other countries, and I'm sure it's probably happening in America, just not in the public eye. Right. Where there, you know, I'm sure that this is out there, and there are actual people that have been doing things like this. There was a group that built a 3D model of a girl, of a young girl, and used motion tracking to pull her off and to entrap predators. And then there was another group. I can't remember where. I think it was maybe Spain or Madrid, but they were using like the film references a chat bot that was going into these chat rooms, and like, because there's so many predators out there, it's very taxing on human beings to try and get these people, you know. It takes a heavy toll on you personally and emotionally, which the film also addresses. So but as far as like when you talk about some of the more fantastical things that happen in like Act Two and even a little bit in Act Three, if you had asked me a year ago, like how soon before that happens, I would have said, you know, like 100 years or whatever.
Right.
But then this whole thing with Google happened, where one of the employees got fired for saying that one of their programs was sentient, and I'm like, oh my God, what timing? So I have no idea. It's possible that this stuff is already happening. I think regardless of where the technology is at, I think we have a responsibility as people, as human beings, to start building habits of compassion and empathy and ethical awareness when it comes to how we approach these artificial intelligences.
You touched on it. That was actually my next question, was about the toll it takes on people who do this kind of work. And And us as viewers, we see To Catch a Predator, or whether we see the entertainment portion of it. We don't see what goes behind it. We don't see the disgusting nature of these people that are doing, that are going after these kids online. How important was it for you to show that aspect of this work?
Yeah, I wanted to de-emphasize the To Catch a Predator aspect because I felt like there's no reason to romanticize or to do that. I felt like the more important issue honestly the aspect of the predator catching thing was more than anything just a way for all of the characters and the audience to be on board with the intention, so that everyone there's no there's no discussion like, is this something that we need to stop? Absolutely. And everybody agrees people might have different reasons and past traumas that influence their, the extent of their determination. But yeah, I do think though it's just a really fun kind of parallel when talking about like the kinds of traumatic things that these employees have to do in order to catch these predators, but they'll do it, of course, because it's so important. And so yeah, when you add a digital CGI girl into that mix, you wouldn't put a child actor through that. So where is that line between putting a child through this and putting an adolescent AI through this?
You got the incredible Lance Henriksen to be in this project. I'm curious, did you write that role with him in mind? And what was it like working with that guy on set?
Oh man. Well, Lance was always at the top of our list. We knew like we weren't going to get a young Gareth in old man makeup. We wanted to get a veteran actor. And of course, like just the subject matter alone, it was like Lance is an incredibly obvious choice. I didn't think it was possible, and it wouldn't have been possible without the help from our production company, Paper Street Pictures, who got the script in front of him, and he was generous enough to read it. And after that, it was I don't know, it was just like a no-brainer. Once he was on set and in his character, and we had several conversations over the phone about his character, and he loved talking about it. This man loves table work. And so every conversation we were having was about the story and about Gareth, which was so incredible, especially for me as a writer director, to have someone like him and someone who I've always idolized talk so intensely and passionately about this story and this character.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a dream come true. But on set, the man's amazing. Like everybody knows that. But getting to witness it, and also getting to pair him up with a rising star that we feel like we discovered with Tatum. I mean, yeah, it's unbelievable. And the two of them had such immediate chemistry as well, which I think was a huge asset as well.
That subject matter is really close to his heart, because one of the things I did with him several years ago, he's like, "Hey buddy, I need you to do me a favor." And I'm like, "What's that?" He's like, "I'm going to send you a bunch of scripts, and I want you to put them on eBay. And any money we make, I want you to send the Children of the Night." That's this group that he deals with all the time that keeps kids off the street and stuff like that. So, when I asked him about the script, I was like, "Is that one of the reasons, besides loving the script, what the script deals with?" And he's like, "Absolutely." So that's something that's near and dear to his heart.
Sure, absolutely. I think, and that was a conversation we had as well.
Oh, cool.
Which is, I'm sure, part of the reason why it resonated was because of his past, his history, and of course, without getting too much into it, he wasn't the only person on set
right.
dealing with stuff like that from his past. I mean, we've all had traumas and things that haunt us. And I think telling the story was really helpful for a lot of us to overcome that and address them in a healthy, productive way, rather than the unhealthy way that the character Gareth tries to suppress and displace his trauma.
I hope this doesn't sound like a stupid question, but do you feel that AI, like humans, become influenced by and a product of their environment?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Cherry and AI in general is going to be a reflection of the people that make her and raise her. That will always be the case. There was that one chatbot. There was like an online public AI, and everybody starts just sort of like experimenting, and they start saying like hateful things at it, and start saying like really bigoted, prejudiced things. And of course, the AI is going to then start displaying those same negative aspects. And I think rather than it being one way or the other, I think, if you gave an AI, even with the best intentions, there's still that possibility, just like with children, that your issues, your traumas and those things, they will carry over, they will perpetuate. I think there is that it is a very close parallel between how we raise our children and how we develop our AI.
One of the interesting things, again, I was thinking about a lot of stuff while I was watching this movie, and one thing that came to mind was Skynet from Terminator. Do you remember Skynet and how
Absolutely.
at the end? Yeah, I mean, was that in the back of your mind? Why? Because how far, we're not far off from something like that possibly happening down the road.
No, of course not.
And it's scary as hell.
It is. It's terrifying. And I mean, there's a lot of horror to explore there. I do feel like, that's definitely a topic of fiction that comes up a lot, is this sort of scary, oh my God, what if the AI rebels against us? And I kind of in the back of my head, liked the idea of having that sort of addressed in a nuanced way. We do get the sense that Cherry is always a little bit bigger than what she's displaying, that there's something a lot more intense and expanding going on sort of behind the screen, that she's not even telling the characters about, and I don't know, I think I like this idea of, instead of it just being like she turns evil, that she has to deal with it the way that human beings would have to deal with it.
Nice.
You confront your parents, you might explode on them, but there's still this human element to her, that and again, this still righteous cause that she's always maintained. So I think, but again, the things that like really interest me too, like where you were talking about the Skynet, there's theories out there. I'm trying to remember what it's called, but it's something, oh shoot, I can't remember what it's called, but basically that in the future there's this super intelligent AI, Roku's Basilisk is what I think it's called. In the future there's this super intelligent AI that's basically omnipresent, it's omni-knowing, it knows all, it sees all, and it can transcend time, basically. That's how insane this AI has become. And because it can perceive time differently and to some degree influence time, it then ensures that everything that needs to happen for it to exist happens a certain way. So it ends up kind of, which is sort of like semi hinted at a little bit when Gareth says, I don't want to spoil too much, but he says, I'm not entirely sure how it all happened. It almost felt like it was rolling down a hill, and the code was almost writing itself. And so maybe like Cherry was always destined to be, and maybe who knows what her future is going to look like, if she's going to see the apocalypse, or maybe she's going to be a part of it. Who knows? I think be interesting to explore.
Have you seen the film Moon with Sam Rockwell?
Sam Rockwell's one of my favorites. Moon's terrific. That's like one of the best sci-fis of the past 20 years. Again,
another, like when I'm watching this movie, it just triggers all these thoughts in my head. Like I thought about Moon when I was watching this film for some reason, and the AI in that film. And you're right, Moon is one of the best sci-fi films I've seen in ages. Absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, yeah. I want more sci-fi like that. You know, I love those the sci-fi that's asking questions rather than just shooting lasers and so that's always been something I've loved.
So after a viewer watches this film, what message would you like them to take away from after watching this film?
That's a great question and a tricky one to answer. I think the film is setting up so much, and I mentioned briefly about how we need to start practicing ethical and empathetic habits when it comes to how we approach technology and children in general. But I think I think a lot of the trials in the film, the things that hold the characters back, I think a lot of those problems and obstacles could have been prevented with honesty and empathy. So, you know, and the film isn't trying to say, oh, we figured out the solution here. But I do hope people come away from it having conversations about that, because I think the more that we discuss it, the more that we're open and honest and compassionate and empathetic, the brighter our future will be.
And finally, I want to know, the film had its world premiere at Fantasia Fest, and I wanted to know, what was that experience like for you, and seeing people see the film and react to the film? For you as a filmmaker, going through everything you went through to get this done, what was that like?
Wild. I mean, it was a dream come true. Like, what can you say? It's I never would have. I mean, like I always knew since I was a toddler I wanted to make films, but to actually get to have a film that I made, like, with the people I love, with Lance Henriksen, premiering at this incredible festival with all of these people. I mean, they had to bring out the folding chairs because so many people showed up, and I'm really thankful for Mitch Davis and Cargill who were talking about the film to all these people, which is why they showed up. And just realizing that this idea that I've been stuck with almost kind of alone in this room with my laptop, you know, writing it, editing it, all this stuff, collaborating with other people on it. But then, like, finally getting it out there and people are connecting with it and talking about it. It makes me feel like I can actually communicate with people and express things that I feel and questions that I have, and learning that other people are feeling these similar kinds of things and wanting to ask similar questions, it just feels like the best parts of being human.